Professor Snap, where we aim to make A-level biology as simple as a cell. So today we're looking at quite an important topic that constantly appears in so many past paper questions. It is understanding the use of genetic screening, including the identification of carriers, pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, and prenatal testing, including amniocentesis and chorionic villus sampling. We'll also understand the implications of prenatal genetic screening and be able to identify and discuss the social and ethical issues related to genetic screening from a range of ethical viewpoints. So this is quite a very important topic, and questions can range from 1 markers to 6 markers. So it's a very important topic basically. The uses of genetic screening. So genetic screening helps identify if an individual or a genome has any alleles that can lead to a genetic disorder. And just to remind you guys, genome is basically every gene that's in an organism. So the entire gene sequence in an organism. So genetic screening is very important as it helps identify individuals that are carriers for a particular genetic condition. If families go through IVF, a pre-screening can help identify if the embryos are carrying any alleles for genetic disorders. This screening is called pre-implantation genetic diagnosis. The fetus can be tested for genetic disorders before birth. This process would be called prenatal testing. Identifying carriers. So carrier testing is offered to families with the history of genetic disorders. It provides important information such as couples with no symptoms possibly carrying carriers for genetic conditions. This can help them evaluate the risk of their child inheriting the condition. Therefore, couples can make an informed choice about having children or choose to get prenatal testing done. So now we're looking at pre-implantation genetic diagnosis. So IVF, which stands for in vitro fertilization, is carried out in labs. The embryos produced are implanted in the uterus so that they can develop into a fetus. Through PGD, the DNA of the embryo is analyzed before implanting into the uterus. So this minimizes the chances of having a baby with a genetic condition and minimizes the need for abortion. Prenatal testing, which is different from pre-implantation genetic diagnosis. So prenatal testing involves testing the fetus for genetic diseases. So that's the only similarity it has with pre-implantation genetic diagnosis. So the two tests that can be done for prenatal testing are chorionic villus sampling and amniocentesis. Sampling is when a small sample of cells is collected from the placenta for using a fine needle. The cells will contain fetal DNA, which can be analyzed for genetic disorders. This test is carried out around 11 to 14 weeks of pregnancy. However, there is a 1 to 2% risk of miscarriage. Now, so amniocentesis is when a small sample of cells from the amniotic fluid is collected using a fine needle. So amniotic fluid is the fluid that surrounds the fetus in the uterus. The fluid cells contain fetal cells, which contain DNA, which can be analyzed. The test should be carried around 15 to 20 weeks of pregnancy. However, there is a 1% risk of miscarriage. So now we're looking at the social and ethical issues behind these tests. So the tests are beneficial as they help couples make an informed decision. Families can prepare for the child's future care as needed. Families can make an informed decision by consulting genetic counselors that provide advice. However, there are risks involved, such as emotional stress and insurance companies using the data against you. There is also the risk of false positives and false negatives, which can further increase the stress. There is also the risk of the rise of designer babies, where couples select specific embryos based on traits. There is also the risk of miscarriage from conducting these tests. Further ethical concerns rise if parents were to decide to abort the fetus. And the ethical concerns behind abortion is its own argument. So, religious beliefs can impact the couple's choice around the fetus. One such decision is the choice of abortion. Many people believe that life begins at the conception, hence, abortion at any stage might be considered unethical. There is belief that abortion is only accepted up to a certain stage. Some people believe it is unethical to bring a child into the world if it is known that the child will have health issues and have a low quality of life. Different cultures might influence decision around abortion. Normalizing abortion for genetic conditions might increase the rates of abortion for non-life threatening genetic conditions such as Down syndrome. And some people also believe that the embryo is not in a position to give consent and might see abortion as a violation of human rights. So that is all for Professor Snap today. So I hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below and I will get back to them as soon as possible. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.